recording. Okay, I'm actually recording this and the
Yeah,
people.
my question is, Professor, I want to know if you're not able to attend the Zoom meeting, do we have to do only the discussion board? That's it?
Yeah, if you don't attend Zoom, then you have to do the discussion boards. But the discussion boards are graded and the Zoom isn't. So, if you attend, then I give you full credit. If you don't attend, then, you need to do something good on the discussion board, not just copy someone else or something.
So
Okay,
basically, how is it going to be working if you enjoy the Zoom meeting?
I'm
How are you going
sorry.
to know how are you going to know if I attend it or not? Do we have to write our
You
name
take
in there?
attendance.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. So today we're going to start we're going to go over the syllabus and introduction about it, right? 12
Yeah,
o'clock.
yeah, totally. I'll go over the syllabus and we'll start with some of the material in chapter 1 and I'll tell you a little bit of, talk about a few other things. So yeah,
I have a question. When is going to be the Zoom meeting? Is it going to be every Mondays or every Sundays?
it's going to be Sunday nights,
From 8 to 9, right?
9:30. So
All
I
right.
usually follow a Sunday schedule. I've been doing that for a long time. And I just bought, we just rented an apartment in Manhattan, my wife and I, and so I'm actually going to be in the city now, but that doesn't really change anything. I'm just using this laptop. It's Apple. I'm getting used to it. I haven't used Apple much in the past. It's a little different from my. I've usually used Windows-based stuff. So I'm learning a little about that. But otherwise, it's going to be Sunday night. Those of you who had passed. It's going to be similar to the other classes I've taught. The difference between, there's someone actually in my 3200 class who decided to retake the class. She had taken it online during the pandemic period and actually is attending the live class because she wanted to see it live in addition. But I don't think you lose much to doing it online. I've taught online for over 20 years. It goes back to the early 2000s. Before, Brooklyn had Blackboard at that time, but it was not really functioning well. And I was doing it, I was teaching part-time elsewhere, and I was teaching to the Navy. So I was like, the class would be like people on these warships all over the world.
Professor,
And I got used to it. And then at Brooklyn, it was bad. So I didn't do it for a few years at Brooklyn because they had to get the system running at least halfway decently. And that happened around 2007 or so. So I've been doing it since then at Brooklyn as well.
well, God bless, Professor. So is it going to be the same code number and the same password, right? For the Zoom, right? Every Sundays.
Yeah, I think so. I'll send it every week. I usually will send you guys emails every week just to tell you what's going to be, and I'll send
What
the
about the
link
discussion
and,
board? Because I was reading the syllabus and it says like you have to do 6 discussion board. What's that about?
yes, that's very true. I'm glad you brought that up. So if you don't attend the Zoom session, you get full credit by doing the optional discussion board. So like the Zoom you can either do the Zoom or the optional discussion board. So either way, and you get full credit for either one. But there are 6 discussion boards that I require. Okay, so those are, whether you do the optional discussion boards or go to Zoom, you have to do these 6 discussion boards. And we'll go over the dates and everything. They're right on there. So if you haven't looked at the Blackboard website yet, you should, because like all the information that you need to know is right on the Blackboard website, including the discussion boards and all the announcements about how I grade and all kinds of stuff like that.
What about the assignment, Professor? How is it going to be working? How many assignments we're going to have through the whole semester and the exams?
You have plenty of time to do the assignment. Okay, the assignment's on the movie 12 O'Clock High. And rather than make you all do the same essay, gave you fairly wide range as to what topics you want to cover. I mean, 12 o'clock high, really, it can be viewed as a stress management issue. It could be viewed as organizational change. It could be viewed as organizational culture. It could be viewed as motivation. It could be viewed as leadership. And those are all topics we're going to be discussing. I mean, it covers
It's,
almost
I
3/4
read,
hours. So you
it
can
says
look,
just,
you can pick which point of view you want to take on that. For instance, one thing you could do with it is it's almost a perfect illustration of Fiedler's contingency theory of leadership, which the textbook discusses. And so, if you read that, you read a little about leadership, you see like, well, the first commander, Colonel Davenport, is a relations-oriented leader. He believes in positive relationships with his group. Socio-emotional is another word for it. Whereas Savage, who, when asked by the commander of the European theater, General Pritchett, he says, and what's wrong with them? And he says that Davenport over-identifies with his men. That, in other words, he is too kind. He relates to them too closely. And what Fiedler says is that you can do that if there's a moderate degree of difficulty. But if the situation is difficult, if the task is difficult, if the leader lacks power, and if the leader-member relations aren't positive, then the situation becomes way too complex to develop long-term relationships. And what was going on there was that the task was of such great difficulty, and you'll see that early on in the story. In fact, almost in the first scene, once Major Stonewall transitions from buying a hat in London to his memory of being on the base, and you see the first scene is that a guy's head is blown open, and basically how do you cope with that emotionally? And so, like, the situation is like so difficult and so stressful that developing relationships is really a fool's errand. And the trouble is that you can't avoid it, and so basically you could view this as stress management, you could view it as leadership, and so Savage steps in. He says to Pritchett, they suffer from over-identification with the men. That Davenport suffers from over-identification with his men. And then Pritchett says to him, okay, my friend, you step in and you do it and show him how it's got to be done. And basically, he takes this really hard-boiled attitude. One of the characters calls him iron-tailed, and yet no one is that iron-tailed. And so basically, it's about the human costs of these extremely difficult situations. It's like if your company is failing, or if you're going bankrupt, or there's huge layoffs. How do you handle the stress? But it also has to do with organizational change. And as I say in the
Professor.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for because I got class by now speaking about it. I have a class on a person speak. So I want to know about the syllabus right now. The homework, is it going to be for each paper we're going to do for the movies? It's going to be one page, right? And how many exams are we going to be covering? Because I got to go back to class.
How many what are we going to be covering?
How many assignments are we going to be having? And how many exams?
So there's 6 discussion boards. There's the written assignment. There's the take-home exam, and either the discussion boards or attending the Zoom session.
Okay, so basically 6 discussion board And how many
Six
writing?
required discussion boards and then the 13 Zoom sessions or discussion boards.
Okay, but how many assignments are we gonna have in total in the exams?
How many assignments in total?
Yes.
Add them all up, whatever that is. So it's 13 plus 1 plus 1. It's like it's at plus 6. So it sounds like 21 to me.
Oh, wait, what about the exams?
The exam is a take-home exam.
So is it gonna be just one exam? Just
One exam,
one exam, okay. So which is gonna be the final exam, right?
the final exam. I'm gonna give it out on the 4th of December. And you will have until the 15th to return it.
Okay, fantastic. So my
15th, I
understanding
give the
is,
grades in, so.
I have a question whenever you got a chance.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically, I was looking over the syllabus on Blackboard, and I try to organize like all like the required assignments because I plan on attending those Zoom sessions. And the required discussion boards, I want to know like where the information for all, like the chapters and the books and all that stuff was because I was looking on the Blackboard and it said in the course documents didn't like I didn't know which one was which. So I wanted to know
Okay,
like
so
is
the
it all-
syllabus tells you, and it's also in the announcements, that in other words, here's the textbook. You can get it online or you can get it, oh, what happened there? It somehow doesn't like
got
it.
it. So it's all
So,
going to be online.
yeah, so the information for the course is in the textbook. I'm basing this course totally on the textbook.
Got
So
it.
the textbook by Robbins and Judge, and it's a very well-known textbook. It is widely used in MBA programs. It might be a little difficult for some of the students, but if you tough through it, you should do fine. And it's very theoretical. I'll try to add some of my own thoughts. I'm not the biggest fan of OB. I'll explain why. I think they tend to be over theoretical, and this book, really is theoretical.
So then,
And yeah, go
so
ahead.
in the so I was looking at it and it said like one of them was like the dilemma or social dilemma. One of them was I forgot. I have it over here.
Yeah,
Like
like on the different films, like Rashomon and
yeah. So those are all like chapters. Those are all
no,
inside.
the films are independent. Those you need to watch those films.
Oh, okay, fine. So all the required ones are based on the films you're talking
That's
about.
correct. So you watch you can get the films on Amazon with the exception of The Social Dilemma, which is a Netflix thing. You might have a way to get it elsewhere.
Got
And
it.
uh, basically watch those, read the requirement, and then analyze the film in light of the textbook requirement.
Okay, and then the assignment for the 12 o'clock that's due on October 31st. I think I saw. I just wanted to make
Mhm.
sure. Okay. And then
This is
also, I'm not
good.
sure if we took attendance yet because I came in a few minutes late, like at like
I
8:03.
haven't taken attendance yet, so you're good.
Oh, okay, fine. Are you doing that at the end? Like, how does that work? I just want to make
I don't know. I usually do it at the beginning, but
right.
if I
Okay, fine. No,
forget,
you know, I
remind
just
me.
wanted to make sure that I was gonna get like for
You'll
today.
get attendance, don't worry. About 3/4 of the classes here. Well, actually 60, almost 70% of the classes here. So you'll all get credit and you don't have to do the optional discussion boards. Those who aren't here, the 13 or 14 people who aren't here, they will have to do the optional discussion boards, which I'll grade. And they will get credit for that.
Right. Okay, fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's like what I'm basically doing, it's like a combination of a live class and a asynchronous class. All right, so in other words, in the asynchronous classes, what I usually do is require discussion boards. I did that for almost the whole time I taught online until Zoom became known to me about two or so years ago. And then I started using Zoom and I realized it's a better mode. So Zoom is almost like a live class and the discussion boards are like the old asynchronous classes. This class was listed as asynchronous. So I don't want to deprive anyone because you have the right not to attend the session. So you can do the discussion boards and I'll treat it exactly as I did the old discussion boards. But if you can make the Zoom session, then it'll be easier for you and you'll get more of like a live class situation. okay?
Professor, how much information do we miss if we do not come to class?
How much information do you miss if you don't come to class? Well, hopefully none. You'll get the information from the textbook. Okay,
Got it.
all right, so let's see, I see some comments here. Let's look at this. Hi, my headphones are dead. Is there any way someone can record this? Actually, yes, I am recording it, and I will send you, I'll put it on, oh, you're the one, Steve Kaplan is the one that came late, that registered recently, so I'll add you. Try to get headphones that work and you won't have that problem. And I marked you present, and you can see the recording. Okay, now. Okay, wait, what's going on? Okay, here we go. Is there a class group chat? Does that, is that something I have to set up, or is that something some of the students set up, a class group chat? Can someone tell me that?
That's the class chat. That's the class student, the student they started that.
The students will do that. Okay, well, try to do that. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, Professor, I have a question. I didn't get it. The discussion board, the 13 one. Is it if you attended the Zoom call, you didn't have to do it, right? The 13
Correct.
discussion board, right?
The optional discussion boards you don't have to do, only
Oh, right.
the 6 required ones. Okay.
Oh, right.
You have 6 discussion boards that you have to do, and that 13 is going to be not mandatory if you attend the Zoom call. That is correct, Moaz, you said that. Anyone want to send a link and we'll all join it? Okay, that sounds like a plan. It's for the students, so I'll make one. Okay, someone sent around a WhatsApp link. That's great. Okay, so I'll leave that in your hands, and let me know if you need any help with that. Incidentally, I am going to give you my cell number, and if anyone has a question, you need to text me. Go ahead, please don't do it unnecessarily. But if you have any sort of emergency, or there's a question, usually it's Sunday nights, I'll be in the city, so you know, I'll be able to get it. When I used to live, well, I still live upstate part-time, I don't get as much reception, so I just put my cell number in the discussion area, in the messaging area. And so if you do have an emergency, you can text me. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, so I will now take attendance. If you are here, please let me know. If not, I guess if you're not here, you didn't hear me say this. Okay, Minhaz Ahmed. Oh, that you. Minhaz Ahmed or Ahmed. Is it not here? Muaz, I see Muaz is here. Dana Balakarova.
I'm here.
Okay, very good. Karina Bahola.
Karina Bola. Hi, Professor.
Bola, hi. Were you in another class of mine?
I don't think so.
No, okay. Well, welcome. Mariella Bonilla. Mariella. Derek Borat.
Yeah,
Hi, Derek. Jalen
thank you.
Chen.
I'm here, Professor. Can you hear
Hello.
me?
I
I'm here.
can.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. Okay, Naisha Cherry.
Here.
Naisha, okay. Welcome, Tyler. Tyler Daly. Charles DeBross, I think I just saw Charles.
Yeah, it was me.
Okay, you were in my HR class, right? Or am I mixed
Yeah, I
up?
remember you.
Yeah, I remember. Caitlin Dingman,
Here.
okay. Reham Elbakatashi,
Yes, I'm here.
hello Reham.
Thank you.
Fatima Faria. Okay. Josanne Frazier. Raquel Gray. Raquel Gray. Gabrielle Huggins. Gabriella Huggins. Brian Joseph.
Here.
Hello, Brian.
Hello again.
Miyuma Kabir. Salma Kahanam. Salma. Okay, Catherine Kim.
Here.
Hello. Clinton Kinetti. Clinton. Ilya Korolev. Ilya, I see your name. Hello? Ilya,
Guessing she's AFK.
what's wrong? The microphone doesn't work or something? Okay, I see some people here. Okay, Raquel Gray, I see people who don't have working microphones. Hold on. Okay, Raquel Gray, Rafailov. All right, let's go back. Okay. Okay, Raquel Gray is here. Rafailov is here. Korolev is here. Okay, Kaplan is here. I had that already. Okay, all right, so now I'm up to Billy Cryam or Crayam. Billy. Christina Kuchenko. Christina. Shanice Lawson.
Here.
Hello. Alex Lee. Alex. Ava Luke.
Here.
Hello. Lisbeth Martinez.
Here.
Hello. Kevin Mata Castro.
Here.
Hello. Barbara Mendick.
Here.
Hello. Leonie Miller.
Here.
Jacqueline Mills.
Hi, I'm here.
Judy Mizrachi.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Hi, Judy. Jessica Moon.
Here.
Hello, Jessica. Oriana Mora.
Hello.
Hello. Hamza Nadeem. Hamza. Anthony Nagoyan.
Here.
Hello, Anthony. Diana Owusu.
Here.
How you doing?
Great, you?
Good, good. Sabita Pekayari.
I'm here, Pekalari.
Pekalari. How you doing? Okay. I have Sapir Shakira Risher.
I'm here.
Hello, Shakira. Elitsa Silks.
Here.
Eliza. Sorry about that, Eliza. Anastasia Stepanova. Anastasia. We're not getting through. Okay. Jijuan Su.
I'm here.
Hello. Nahima Sultana.
I'm here.
Hello.
Hi, Professor.
Roy Vaughan Watson Taylor. Roy Vaughan Watson Taylor. Michael Williams.
Hey, Professor.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you? Bin Wu.
Here.
Hello.
Hi, Professor.
How we doing?
How you
I'm
doing?
good.
Good. So basically, is there anyone I didn't call? Sometimes people register late.
Professor, you didn't call me.
Yangwei Wu. Okay, Olieju, did you register recently?
Yeah.
Okay. Yangwei Wu. I downloaded this last night, but or 2 nights ago, but sometimes that takes people registered at the last minute. It doesn't. Okay, anyone else? I didn't call.
Yeah, I didn't get called.
Yeah, Gladier. You were in my class another semester, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Which one? Was it online?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
3,200 maybe.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, Gladier. Hopefully there's not too much, I avoided duplicating. It's similar material, but it's different. So you won't have too much duplication anxiety.
Okay.
Good. So, all right, so I'll go through anyone else I didn't call? Who might have registered recently? Okay, I'll go through the people who are absent. I don't know if you could see this, but we've got a pretty big class. It's 53 or so, which is among the bigger classes I've taught here. It's not, I've taught bigger ones, but so bear with me. It's there's a lot of clerical work with this number of students. So let me go through the list of the people. This is only the people who are absent. If I don't call your name now, it's because I marked you present already. So Minhaz Ahmed, Mariella Bonilla, Tyler Daly.
Hello?
Yes,
Did you call Stephen Kaplan?
I did. I marked you present.
What?
I marked you present.
I can't hear you. I have bad headphones.
I did mark you present, okay?
Thank you so much. Can you send me the recording? I had an emergency. My headphones are broken.
Okay, I will. I'll send you the link.
Thank you so much. Sorry for being a pain.
No problem. Okay, so where was I? Tyler Daly. Fatima Faria. Josanne Frazier. Gabriella Huggins. I don't know what that is. I don't get this. Okay, sorry about that. Gabriella Huggins, Mayuma Kabir, Salma Kahanam, Clinton Kinyeti, Billy Kryam, Christina Kuchenko, Alex Lee, Hamza Nadim, Anastasia Stepanova, Roy Vaughn Watson Taylor. Okay, and that's it. So those are the people I did not mark as having attended. Yes, I did say Rafailov and Castro. Kevin Matta-Castro. Yes, I have Kevin Matta-Castro. Okay, all right, so this should do it. Good.
Hey, Professor, how long are we here until?
9:30 or so. So I'm sorry I've taken so much time with this. But now let's get into the material. I want to talk tonight a little bit about the introductory material in chapter 1 and give my assessment as to why a number of leading scholars have been critical of OB. I think it's something to think about. But before I do that, I should go over the syllabus, make sure that we're all on board here. So basically, OB is a subject that deals with individual and group behavior within organizational systems. The topics include stuff like job attitudes, perception, motivation, communication, group behavior, teams, leadership, power, organizational structure, business ethics, and diversity. I'm going to use some films since we're remote here. I'm going to have you watch some films and you can analyze the behavior in the films and apply the concepts we learn in the class to the films. Okay, and the films are, we've already discussed, besides 12 O'Clock High, which I want you to write your term paper on, there's a Rashomon and The Social Dilemma, which some of you may have seen recently. There is Enron, the Enron movie. There is, what I leave out, I just want to make sure I get them all. The Enron movie, The Fog of War, which is really brilliant, great movie about conflict. And then also there are 2 case studies, which are 2 of my favorite case studies from 30 years of teaching. The Smile Factory, which is a case study of Disneyland and the organizational culture of the Disneyland characters, and like how Mickey Mouse relates to the store, the sweeper, or the food concessionaire, and as well the aircraft brake scandal by Kurt Vanderveer, which is one of the great case studies about organizational politics. So those 7 items. There's 5 films, 2 case studies, and also the paper. And that's gonna you're gonna write your essays on that kind of material. The take-home exam will be based on the book. So hopefully between reading the textbooks, analyzing the films, and writing some discussion boards, attending Zoom lectures, you'll learn a bit about organizational behavior. As we've already discussed, you can choose between the Zoom sessions and the discussion boards. There are 6 required discussion boards. The other ones are optional. I do monitor attendance, as you've already seen, so you should do something. Now, the Brooklyn, CUNY has this thing that if you don't attend in the first class or two, they drop you from the class. So if you have any friends who didn't come, you better tell them that unless they do the discussion boards there, I think because next week is a holiday. We're not having a session next time, September, what is it, the 4th, I think, is, it's that, does anyone know the exact date? I should tell you that.
Yeah, I think it's on September 4th.
Yes.
Yeah.
4th.
We don't
Okay,
have a
so-
class. We have the next one on September 11th.
Absolutely right. So the next one on September 11th, I think, is after the date where you have to participate, not to be dropped. So everyone who's here, of course, that's not a problem. But if you know someone who hasn't attended, then please let them know. At the conclusion of the course, okay, some of the aims of the course, you should be able to think about and critically about organizational behavior and all those subjects I mentioned: motivation, power and politics, organizational structure, and so on. You should be able to apply these concepts to the films and case studies I've assigned. And you should learn how to, now, one thing I have to mention, I do some work on writing. A few people who've had me before know that. I do discuss some writing issues, and there's a couple of course documents about the writing that you should look over. They're in the course documents, how to, one of them is entitled How to Capitalize Book Titles, I think it is, and the other one is the pre-submission checklist. Read through those handouts. They're very useful, and they'll help you improve your writing with just a little bit of effort. Okay, so everyone's supposed to log on to Blackboard. Generally, I'll put announcements by email. So very important in this class, in all my classes, but especially in this class, which is online, is to have a correct email address in Web Central. Okay, you should have a correct email address in Web Central. Okay, so I don't have to discuss the one-page term paper tonight, but your paper, the term paper, should be limited to just one page. Okay, I'm going to correct the writing and then you'll resubmit it. You'll redo it. Okay, so it's a combination of the content that you're analyzing and also the writing style. As far as your grading, I have a detailed discussion of the grading on the Blackboard announcements. The items that are going to be graded, the take-home exam is 35% of your grade. The paper is 25% of your grade. The Zoom or discussion board participation is 25% of your grade. And the 6 required discussion boards are 15% of your grade. Okay, and that equals 100%. Okay, so you can look over the syllabus. The first class after this one is a holiday, so we won't meet again until the 11th. All right, so now let me get into some of the material. Basically, organizational behavior is the field of study that looks at how individuals, groups, and groups or organizational structure interact, and how people behave in organizations. Now, in my 3200 class, which 1 or 2 people have taken, the focus is on skills. This book is much more theoretical than the book I use in that class, and unfortunately, it does less to prepare you for the real world. That's part of why I'm critical of OB. And this famous professor of management who retired a few years ago at Harvard, Abraham Zalesnik, is a psychiatrist, and he wrote a book, The Managerial Mystique, and he devotes a section of that book to organizational behavior, to OB, and basically says it's, it's pointless, it's excessively theoretical, and doesn't really do the job of training leaders. So, basically though, I'll try to overcome that complaint. Another complaint about OB that I think is true, but I question its importance, is Reinhard Bendix in Work and Authority in Industry. Bendix was a famous sociologist who taught at Berkeley, and his aim is to show that all cultures, he used two communist cultures this was written back in the 50s, 1950s. He describes two communist cultures, East Germany and the Soviet Union, and two free market cultures, UK and the US. And his aim is to show that all cultures have rationalizations for why managers should have power. His point, though, is especially focused on the US. What he's saying is that OB is not science, it's just a rationalization for managerial power. Okay, and that OB is inherently authoritarian. Many union leaders have made the same complaint about OB. If you consider the management movement of the 1930s, led by the Harvard professor Elton Mayo, it was called the Human Relations School. That Mayo wrote about studies that his colleagues were doing at the Western Electric plant in Illinois, and he realized that what affected motivation most was not the hardcore material things that scientific management talks about. That, and the things that scientific management talks about are how to structure jobs, how to show people how to do the right task, industrial engineering, time and motion study, and the use of incentives, training people to do work the optimal way. And the optimal way, or the one best way, is determined by industrial engineers who do time and motion studies and tell the employees how to do it, and then give them incentives to do it optimally. And back in the 30s, Elton Mayo said this idea, which was by then about 25, 30 years old, said this idea is wrong because it doesn't take into account group dynamics. So if you view that as the birth of organizational behavior, there was other writing around that time that you could view as the origin and the birth of organizational behavior. Another would have been Chester Barnard, The Functions of the Executive. And Barnard was a executive. He wasn't a professor. He was an executive at what's now AT&T, and he wrote this great book about all these topics that we're talking about. A lot of the stuff we're talking about, he made a first pass at discussing. Of course, he didn't do it with the complexity and rigor that these scholars quoted in your textbook have done it, but we've had 100 years to refine. A lot of the basic stuff, though, is in that book. And then as well, in the 1990s, a professor in Australia, Lex Donaldson, wrote a book called American Anti-Management Theories of Organization. And he argues in that book that much of the research done in the management field, including stuff quoted in your textbook, is driven by a narcissistic, he doesn't use that word, but I think he makes it clear that that's what's going on, is driven by a narcissistic intent of researchers to make themselves famous and not to really understand how to help managers. So basically, there have been a lot of criticisms of OB, and some of them are probably deserved. Some I don't think so. For example, if you look at Reinhard Bendix's argument that OB is just a rationalization of managerial power, that's obviously false. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, if you look at the growth in productivity rates in the 20th and 21st centuries, they were better than before. In other words, there's very real reason to think that scientific management and the theories that built on it, including the human relations school, which was critical of scientific management, but in many ways couldn't have existed without its predecessor. It was using categories and structures created by Taylor, who himself was not an academic. Taylor was a consultant, the effects of scientific management on our world are vast. And I would say a criticism I have of your textbook is that it kind of says, oh, the old theories of scientific management, old theories of organizational behavior like scientific management. And that's not really true. I mean, the way that managers act and think is still driven largely by scientific management. There was a guy who went to Brooklyn College for a year and made the mistake of dropping out. And then he became active in the labor movement and became a prominent left-wing socialist. And he wrote a book called Labor and Monopoly Capital in the 1960s. His name was Harry Braverman. And basically, he describes in there the idea that OB is window dressing, that human resource management is window dressing. And the real management that's done is scientific management. And he coined the term de-skilling. That term comes from that book. And the idea of de-skilling is that managers McDonaldize, that they simplify the work, break it down into its components, train the workers to do simple tasks, and seize control of the craft from what had been crafts before. And that's historically true. But the problem with that argument that all it is de-skilling and exploitation is that in the countries where there's been the application of scientific management, and by implication OB, although I think OB is kind of like the subsequent rationale and elaboration on scientific management. And if you look at the countries that have adopted scientific management and OB, they're the richest countries. In other words, the countries that run factories efficiently are the richest countries. And these are, besides the US, countries like Switzerland, the UK, Japan, and all of these places learned from American management practices and then elaborated on them, sometimes did them better. Japan is an interesting case, and there's a great book called The Power of Productivity by William Lewis. And Lewis was a McKinsey consultant. McKinsey is one of the few most important consulting firms in America. They're based here in New York, and they provide advice to many, many leading organizations. And Lewis did a study as one of their research leaders, and he did a study where he sent young consultants, mostly MBA graduates, around the world to investigate what makes plants more or less productive. They analyzed all kinds of data, and they looked country by country. And basically what Lewis found was three things. First of all, the first two were well-known and well-established, that in a free market economy, the firms are going to be more efficient than in a socialist economy. And the result is that people are richer. That's number one. And there's no debate about that at this point. Anyone who says there's a question of that is ignorant. Second of all, equally important is that these countries are governed by the rule of law. In my other class, no one knew what the rule of law meant, so I'll explain it briefly. You should know this, by the way. It's a failing of your education that you haven't been told about this. That basically the rule of law is that there are fixed laws, and everyone in society has to obey the laws. So, for example, if you have a system where the president can pass an edict illegalizing something today that was legal yesterday, and then reverse it the day after, that's not the rule of law. So countries that have that kind of system, in Nazi Germany, the term that Hitler adopted was Führerprinzip, Führerprinzip, the rule of the Führer, that whatever he said was law. If that's the exact reverse. The same was true in the communist countries and in many socialist countries. Socialist countries can't abide by the rule of law because once you adopt a socialist system, the government is inherently managing the economy. And in order to manage the economy, you have to have flexibility. There's a great article, I don't assign it in this class, but you should take a look at it, The Use of Knowledge in Society by Friedrich Hayek. And in that article, he shows why socialist countries, even without the rule of law, are in much less flexible than in a free market system. And the main reason is the price system. So basically, if you hand the economy to the government, it becomes inflexible. And so it results in declining productivity. And socialist countries have had systematically lower standards of living and poorer people, higher mortality rates, lower life expectancy, despite socialized medicine, than capitalist countries. So the first two are well known and they're not very debatable. That number one, countries with free market systems do better. Number two, countries with the rule of law do better. But the third one was new, and I think it's very important. And what he basically says is that those two ingredients are not enough. The Swiss aren't richer than almost everyone else, including us, and the Singaporeans aren't richer than almost everyone else, including us, simply because they have free market systems and simply because they have the rule of law. Those two are true, but they also have something else, which is that they have very good organization of work, that the human resource management, that the organization structure, that the task assignments are well thought out, that they've used the scientific management approach well, and so on. So basically, what Lewis found is that those three ingredients are what makes countries rich or poor. So basically, I would say to Reinhard Bendix, OB is not just a rationalization of managerial power. It's a real thing. You can improve productivity through better management. Now, does that mean that everything in organizational behavior does that? And the answer is no. I don't think that's true either. Okay, now moving into your textbook, Robbins and Judge argue that the best business decisions are data-driven and that they're 10% more accurate than human intuitive decisions. And I agree with that 100%. For example, one example, people who've taken my HR class know that formal ability testing is far more efficient than an interview alone. If you combine an interview with the ability testing, then you're going to do even better. But if you just choose one, the ability testing is a much more powerful determiner of who's going to be a good employee than your interview. A few pages after Robbins and Judge say that, they say, our ability to make simple, accurate generalizations about ourselves is limited. Two people often act very differently in the same situation. OB concepts must reflect situational or contingency conditions. And that said, if situations are so fluid that we can never be sure of anything, why do we need to have data-driven decisions? And I think that's a valid question. I think in some cases, the nature of the decision-making is clear enough that data will help. In other cases, it will not help. Okay, now it may surprise you to know that the first book written about managerial skills was written 2,500 years ago by a guy named Aristotle. And the title of the book, he didn't actually write the book, but he wrote everything in it. But the guy, somebody after he died, assembled Aristotle's notes into a book. That's true of all of Aristotle's writing that we have inherited. And basically, the title of the book is the Nicomachean Ethics. And in that book, very early in the book, Aristotle says, do not expect of ethics the same provision, the same precision that you should expect of subjects like astronomy or biology. But we can achieve the precision appropriate to the situation. And basically that's the disclaimer that Robbins and Judge give. But I think this idea that Aristotle had, that yes, we need to have basic concepts. We need to have excellences, he called them arete, or virtues. But we need to be good at judging when to balance the data. And this is very important. So OB alone, and this is the criticism that Zalesnik makes in Managerial Mystique, that you can't really become a leader by studying theory, you know, and it's true that there are a few absolutes in OB. All they can do is see patterns, but they can't. Now, in that quote I just gave, there's an important concept, contingency conditions. And this is the basis of a lot of management thinking, that contingency variables or situational variables or factors that moderate the relationship between two or more variables. And so it's important to understand what the situation is to know how to balance our decision making. Okay. Okay, your book quotes a study of 2,100 CFOs, which found that a lack of interpersonal skills is the top reason why employees fail to advance, or at least some employees fail to advance. You know, Warren Buffett, the famous investor, talks about when he gives a job interview, he just assumes that if someone got to the point where they can have an interview with him, they're smart enough to do a competent job, and they're smart enough intellectually. They wouldn't have gotten in to see him if they weren't already quite talented. What he looks at is how big is their ego? How narcissistic are they? How thoughtful are they? He's looking at personality factors. He's looking at emotional intelligence. And those are the kinds of things that really matter in the workplace. So developing people's interpersonal and managerial skills and leadership skills for managers helps keep high performance employees, improve social relationships, and correlates with job satisfaction. So it's very, very important. Despite the importance of interpersonal and leadership skills, more than 58% of managers say that they have never received any training on these topics. And 25% say that they were not ready to lead others. Okay, well, the attitude has often been learned by doing. I once had a guest speaker from IBM to talk about her work in international business. And I asked her, when you went to work in a foreign country, when you went to work in South Africa, or when you went to work in Japan or anywhere else, and she had worked in many, many countries, what kind of training did IBM give you to prepare you for these cultures, for managing people in these cultures? And she said, they never gave me any training at all. Okay, so it was, she was obviously talented, but that's a serious error. And that's why, incidentally, US expatriate managers who manage overseas are called expatriates. That's why US expatriate managers have an extremely high failure rate, much higher than the Japanese who train their employees well. All right, now, Feo defined management as 5 things: planning, organizing, coordinating, leading or directing. He used the word directing, now they use the word leading, and controlling like accounting. If you look at the different business functions, you can see elements of these in all of them. Controlling is accounting, planning, HR, marketing, organizing, top management, and so on. Leading, of course, top management. Mary Parker Follett was a progressive theorist who wrote a lot about management thinking early in the 20th century. And she said, management is getting things done through people. Okay, so she says that fundamental to all management is interpersonal skills. That's probably not true, because things like working with computers now, and we'll talk a bit about that, have changed management a great deal. And there's no doubt that technology not only has changed virtually every aspect of management, but it will continue to change how we manage and the nature of managerial skills. Another definition, while I'm on defining what management is, was that of W. Edwards Deming. I'll talk more about Deming during the semester. Deming was the inventor of what's called total quality management, or TQM. Management is, TQM, I mean, is a focus on integrating quality processes into production processes. So Deming's concept of management is elaborated by a production expert named Taguchi in something called the Taguchi loss function. And Deming says throughout his writing that management is the reduction of the variance of outputs. That, in other words, and I'm going to put this on the chalkboard if I can figure how to do it. Yeah, here. Okay. So I'm putting a whiteboard up. Jeez. This crazy security stuff in this computer isn't letting me do this. All right, I'll have to figure it out later. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that these Apple computers are just so badly designed. I'm not going to get into that. But in any case, the idea is, if you can picture like there's like a wide, there's a target line like size 6 dress, size 6. You're making size 6 dresses, and some get a little too big, some get a little too small. So you start out that there's a big amount of variation around it, and over time the variation gets littler and littler. And basically that's the idea of continuous improvement, that you continue to reduce the variation around the target. And so there becomes less and less variation. And the theme of Deming's thinking is that you need to reduce all core sources of variability, both human, manufacturing, input, material, machine, computer, everything. Like what he would say is, my failure to put up that whiteboard just now was caused by mechanical failure, because I am using a different kind of computer. I should have standardized my use of computers so that this variability in my output wasn't increased by the different computer. Okay, that's an important concept in Deming. And so basically that you systematize everything, make everything uniform, including the people. You train the people, you get them to think with a strong culture. And so what that does is it reduces the amount of variability. All right, so Mintzberg talks about 10 management roles, including interpersonal, informational, and decisional roles. And interpersonal roles include figurehead, leader, and liaison. Information roles include monitor, disseminator, and spokesperson. And decisional roles include entrepreneur, disturbance handler, and resource allocator. Very important topic in this chapter is the difference between effective and efficient managers. These two guys, Luthans and Rosencrantz, and a third guy, Hodges, there's a third author, wrote this book, Real Managers, based on a series of articles that Luthans and his students wrote. And basically, they identify 4 management areas: technical management, the stuff you learn in accounting and finance and operations, communication, human resources, and networking. Okay, and they look at which of these factors is most important to being a successful manager, and which of these is most important to being an effective manager. An effective manager is somebody who gets the job done, who gets promoted. I'm sorry, not who gets promoted, gets the job done, who motivates people, who has high output levels. A successful manager is somebody who gets promoted, who gets raises, who's slated for better things. It turns out what they find that average managers, neither successful nor effective, average managers spend 32% of their time on traditional management tasks, like planning, the things that Feo talks about, planning, controlling, coordinating. 29% on communication tasks, like exchanging routine information, and 19% on networking, especially with higher ups, and 20% on HR management. If you look at the successful managers, they spend only 19% compared to 32% for the average managers. Successful managers spend only 19% on traditional and technical issues. They spend 28% on communication. 44% on communication, 19, I'm getting mixed up here. 19% on traditional, 28% on communication, 48% on networking, and 11% on HR. And if you look at the effective managers, they spend 26% on HR, 44% on communication, 19% on traditional, and 11% on networking. So basically, you see a huge difference between the 3 kinds of managers. The average managers believe Feo. They spend a lot of time on traditional management, on technical stuff, planning and controlling. Successful managers spend a lot of time networking. To be successful, you need to network. Effective managers spend 44% of their time on communication. So successful managers network, effective managers communicate, and average managers manage in the traditional way. Okay, I think that this is very big food for thought. And I think, if you think about what, the criticisms of people like Zalesnik and Bendix, they're wrong. I mean, this is a useful thing to know. It's not, you know, what he's saying is, students, my dear students, if you want to be successful, you need to learn to network. If you want to do a good job, you need to learn to communicate with your employees and be a good leader. And if you want to do both, then do both. All right, but very, very few people do both because it's hard to be both effective and successful. Now, you may say to that, but that's not fair. That's outrageous. How come it is? Economists tell us that we're paid according to our marginal productivity. If I'm more productive, I should get a raise. Well, I'm not one to contradict economics. I agree with economics. I think it's true. But it's only true in the long run. And in the long run, as Keynes said, we're all dead. Okay, so in the short run, and usually for good amounts of time in American companies, interpersonal skills are more important than productivity. I'm sorry to say that, but that's true. So how do you use that? You have to develop your interpersonal skills and not be deluded by the idea that you're only going to get ahead by doing a good job. Now, that's true of the so-called gig economy that your book talks about. That's very important to understand that more workers today work as contractors and contingent workers, people who are consultants, who are temps, who work as part-time advisors or contract workers. These type of people are becoming more and more prevalent in our economy. And you might say, well, do they need interpersonal skills? Well, yeah, they need more interpersonal skills than ever before. I mean, because you're constantly selling yourself. You need to be a kind of a salesperson to do that. You're constantly selling yourself. And so you need to develop sales skills. And I was telling my other class, my 3200 class, where I talk more about skills, I was saying, one of my failings in this class is I won't talk enough about sales skills, because those are the kinds of skills that you need to get ahead. There's a great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, by Dale Carnegie. And there's a Dale Carnegie Institute, I think, right in Brooklyn, or it may be in Manhattan, but I think there's one in Brooklyn. And basically, you can go there and get sales training. And if you read that book, you learn a lot about how to sell. And that's a first step. But it's very important to get out there and sell yourself. And, you know, I'll talk a little bit during the semester about informational interviewing, but it's something you should be doing. You should be going to firms and talking to managers directly and asking them questions. How do I get into this field? How did you get into being an advertising executive? How did you get into being a finance executive? What courses should I take? You know, that might be obvious for some of it, but what are the emerging issues? What kind of people should I meet? And so on. So you should be talking to real world managers. Now, a very big issue is the career fairs at the college. I know a lot of you guys are working and have trouble getting to the college, but the thing is, if you don't attend these career fairs and meet the recruiters there, you're going to be at a big disadvantage. If your goal is to work in marketing and there are marketing people attending career fairs and you don't go there, and then you write them, oh, I'm interested in working for your firm, but I didn't have the time to go meet you in person when you were at the school. I mean, what are they to make of that? So basically, you want to attend those career fairs and meet managers in the field in which you want to work. It's a very important idea. Now, your book talks a little bit about globalization. And basically, globalization is the process of worldwide integration and interdependence interdependence across borders. This has been on the decline. I completely don't agree with the idea of protectionism with setting up tariffs, but unfortunately, we're at a point where both political parties have been supporting protectionism and tariffs. What that's going to do is create increasing job migration back to the US in manufacturing, but we're at a point where the labor market is so saturated with jobs that, in other words, there's a very, very tight labor market. There are huge numbers of jobs are going unfilled. There's never been anything like this in my lifetime, and I'm 68. So I've been around. A lot of people are retired. Most people, I think, are retired by my age. And I've never seen a situation like this where there are so many unfilled jobs. So why we need to bring jobs back here remains a puzzle to me. But my bet is that we're going to see more manufacturing come back home. And what that will do is probably, in my bet, increase the demand for robotics, for technology, for increasing a technology that will sidestep the need for so many employees. However, globalization will not go away. And as much as diversity has been an increasingly important issue in organizations, and your book talks about it, and it's obviously true. If you watch, there's a great TV show that was on AMC from 2000, I think it was from 2007 to 2015 or so, called Mad Men. And basically what Mad Men is about is the advertising business in Manhattan from 1960 to 1970 or thereabouts. And you might say, why those years? Well, that was the period when television had become widespread, and it totally changed advertising into something that firms did, and they did it on the radio and so on, to a massive industry, and that has only escalated in size and importance since the advent of the internet, all the crazy ads and insane use of big data on the web. And your book talks about how these technologies are changing management, which is undoubtedly true, but it's also changing how people market and how they purvey products, and you know all this. But in any case, getting back to Mad Men, one of the themes in that show is when it starts out, it's all male, it's all white, it's all WASP, and it gradually changes over time, over the 10 years. And you start to see, I won't go into the plot, but I highly recommend the show. It's really a wonderful show about creativity in part. And, and you learn a lot about the history of American business through it. Basically, that was kind of the beginning, but we're becoming even more diverse over time, and this has important implications for organizations. And I think that's fairly obvious, but it's worth repeating. So basically, one of the bad effects, and I just saw this movie, The Social Dilemma, last year, and I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, it's a must-see movie on Netflix. I'm assigning it in my, I'm assigning it in this class. What am I saying? Okay, so you are going to see it. It's very, very important. And, it gets into some of the issues discussed in your textbook on the effects of technology on privacy and surveillance. Now, of course, this has always been an issue in the workplace. This goes back to Taylorism. A lot of the reason people hated Taylor was that they observed the employees and timed them and stuff like that. And, now, of course, I remember hearing Mike Bloomberg on TV in 2000. At that time, email was maybe in popular use for about 10 years or so. And he said in there, he said on the show, I remember very clearly, that he had a program in his company, and if people use certain words in their email, those emails go directly to HR, and I'm sure that still goes on, but I'm sure it's like magnified now 1,000-fold. And it's not just in your firm. I mean, people used to object to it in their company that, the company could eavesdrop on their phone calls and stuff, which is totally legal. But now it goes on that the tech company is eavesdropping on your conversations, even when your computer is off. Basically they're finding out all kinds of stuff about you. Google's programs, no matter which one, even if you just have WhatsApp, if you carry your cell phone around, it sends a signal to Google like every half a minute or something. So they know where you are, they know everything about you, what stores you shop in, what you're getting. And, obviously, there's reasons to be concerned about this. It's one thing if they have it. I mean, it's kind of icky if they have it, and I find it objectionable. But it's much worse, of course, if the state has it. Then you get into this high degree, like in communist China right now, where the state is basically controlling everyone's actions and controlling speech, controlling opinion, controlling personal taste, and so on. And this is quite frightening. This was really Orwell times 10. If you haven't read 1984, it's another book I recommend. So basically, social media and technology are having a huge effect. They've changed organization structure. They've changed the way people relate to each other. They've changed the way people communicate. And this is all, it's stuff you know already, but it's important. Another big issue is ethics. Okay, and I mentioned Aristotle and the Nicomachean ethics at the beginning of the talk. And I think that ethics and OB are two views of the same subject. And while it's true that data helps improve decision-making and can help you profit, you always have, no matter how smart the technology, you always have to raise ethical questions. And there's always an ethical element to all action. Aristotle wrote about this 2,500 years ago. It's hard to believe, but it's more true now. Aristotle would have recognized these issues now, just as he did when he was the teacher of Alexander the Great, who went on to conquer the world, that all action is a matter of judgment, prudence, and you need to integrate virtues like courage and moderation. And the danger of artificial intelligence and the danger of these technologies is that they are unconstrained by human judgment. And there's a very serious danger of these technologies becoming masters of us rather than us masters of them. And if they do, then they need to be discarded. And that's a very important consideration. I know this is a little philosophical, but I think one of the big problems with our world right now is that Google has dumbed people down to such a degree that people no longer read books. I give an assignment to read a case study of 20 pages, and rather than read it, people look up things on Google. Google is designed by idiots. It's not designed by scholars. It's designed by tech executives with college degrees who know nothing about scholarship and have never, are not scientists, don't know what science is, couldn't even define it accurately. And a few people in America can, and take it upon themselves to tell us what we should know. But of course, they don't know themselves, they're idiots. So, basically, Google is a source of information designed by idiots and of use only when you can use the information, you have the sufficient judgment to see what's idiotic and what isn't. You have to sift through it, and you can't do that if you don't already have a pretty substantial education. So Google searches are of limited value. I'm not saying they're of no value. You can get new information from them, but you can't get real knowledge from them. And there's a big difference. And so, what I said to my other class is, if I spend 3 hours a day watching TV, watching movies, I'm a big old movie fan. I watch a lot of Netflix and so on. If I cut that in half and spend half the time reading a book, I'm a lot better off. And the same thing with you guys. If you're spending 2 or 3 hours a day on social networking, think about limiting it. Now, there's another issue also that I'll mention before I let you go, which is that social networking is a source of intelligence for companies. They're going to look for you on the web. The author of the classic book, which I highly recommend on job search, Bowles, who died 5 years ago, as the book is being continued by someone else. He says in there that Google is the new resume. You don't need a resume because there's so much about you online. And that's very dangerous because employers sift through your Facebook site, they sift through stuff about you online, they sift through posts you've made, and they will make employment decisions based on those things. So basically what I recommend is to treat any online presence, if you decide to go online at all, as that you're at a job interview. Okay, and only put stuff online that you would say on a job interview. All right, if there's anything that doesn't fit that bill at this point, get rid of it. And limit your online presence. Your online presence should be limited to professional things. You should not be socializing on Facebook. You should not be giving your opinions on Facebook or on any place else, or Twitter or any of the other ones, and Instagram or any of it, pictures or anything like that. That's all stuff you should get rid of. And view your online presence as a job interview, and you won't regret it. Okay, so this takes us to about 9:30. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap things up?
Yes, hi, Professor. I was wondering, do you know if there's an online digital version of the textbook? Or
I believe there is, yes. If you go to the publisher's website, I believe you can get it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Professor, do you what's the word? Do you check attendance twice, or is it a one-time thing per day?
Should I check it twice? The
No,
answer is,
no, I mean
I will at times check it twice, yes.
Okay.
Hi, Professor. You said you get full credit if you are participating on the Zoom, right?
Correct.
Okay. Have a good evening.
You too, Karina. Anyone else? Other questions?
Have a beautiful, beautiful night, and I'll see you next September 13th.
I'm sorry, I can't hear. I don't understand.
I say, have a beautiful night, and I'll see you September 13th. Enjoy the holiday.
Very good, except I think that it's the 11th of September, Muaz, the 11th.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we could just leave now?
All right, good night, guys. Good night.
Well, if you want to stay and talk to me more, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you can leave.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you, Professor.
Dana,
Yes, thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good evening.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you, Professor.
Have a good one.
Hello, Professor.
Yes.
Sorry, quick question. I read the syllabus.
What's your name, by the way? R.E. I don't. Oh, Niham. Reham. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I was looking at the syllabus. The 6 discussion boards that were it's mandatory to do. I see on the syllabus it says which ones there are, but it doesn't say when.
I think I do say when.
Um,
Let me
it
look.
just shows.
I said, well, there's a place that says important dates and I see. If you look at, the college has asked me, it's like the third page, the end and the syllabus.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Sorry about that.
Also on
Yeah, it's
important
lower.
dates,
Okay,
and it's also when I give like the assignments, class to class assignments, it's also in there.
got it. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
I
I
think it's
saw
one
it.
other place where it's in
I
the
see it
syllabus.
on Blackboard, but I didn't
Yeah.
scroll far enough on the
Okay.
syllabus. I see it now.
All
Thank
right,
you,
I'll try to
Professor. Have a
remind
good
you
night.
every week in the email also.
Thank you very much. Have a
You're
good night.
welcome. You too, William. Okay, anyone else? Charles?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, you look different from the last time I saw you in human resources. You look younger, actually.
Oh, thank you. Well, I lost a little weight.
No, that's what it was. I was like, yeah, he looks different. He looks better.
I just got
Maybe
married. I'll
I'm
tell my wife you said that.
all right. By the way,
Appreciate
I still like your music taste, by the way. Like whenever I come into class and I hear your music taste, it's actually good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Last
Take
thing.
care.
Did
I'll
you
do my
forget-
best to provide good music at the beginning.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. All right, bye.
Take care. Okay. Karina, you still here? Sabita? Pekalari?
Oh, for me, I was just gonna like I read the part of chapter 1, like the 0.5, where it talked about the different types of managers, and I just wanted to like piggyback on what you said, basically, of because it reminded me like the biggest conclusion at the end of the study from Laffins and Associates to me was just that sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Like
You
that's a
got
saying.
it, Karina. And that's why networking is so important. You know, I say that in every class I teach, that networking, you got to network. You should start now, you know, get involved with the student activities like the on-campus interviews. You should go to join the clubs, you know, like, I don't know what your interests are, but if you're interested in marketing, join the marketing club or whatever. And you should also meet managers on your own. I mean, it's not too soon. You know, I know it's scary, but you can do that.
That's how I had got my last job. It's just like through a family friend. She was the managing director, and like she's just aware of like that I'm studying business administration with the concentration of management. She was like, well, why don't you try this out? And I was office administrator for a public school. So
That's great. Yep, that's how it works. And, you know, the more connections you make, the more opportunities.
yeah. So yeah, that's something I know. So thank you, Professor. I
Good,
really
Karina,
enjoyed
very
our
good.
time.
See you next time.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Sabita, are you still here or you with us? No? Okay, have a good one.